Here we go again. Another lecture. I know you're absolutely thrilled to be watching another online lecture. Hey, I hope everything's going well for you guys as you're working through online classes. I know it's a different scenario, and I hope everything's going really well for you. Let me pray for us as we continue on the lecture on the media mix. Father, we lift our work up to you. We pray that you'll help us work through the online stuff and learn everything that we need to learn for the life that we're going to have in our future. And I pray that students will be able to take good notes on these things and be able to do really well on the exams. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, let's dive right back in. I'm sorry, this is probably going to be another long one. Oh, thrill, right? Hey. So we're going to pick up on magazines. Lots of different types. Oh, I need to do that again because I didn't do something that I needed to do. Make sure I share my sound so that you'll be able to, there we go, so you can watch the videos and hear them also. So, magazines. There are a lot of different magazines. There are those that consumers purchase. There are those that are given out free. There are business magazines, which we call journals or trade magazines or trade rags. And some of those are purchased and some of them are given out free. So we do have that both for consumers and for business people. Generally, magazine readers are self-selecting, which means they chose to read the magazine. So that tells us a lot. Number one, it's targeted to somebody who's interested in the material. So if I advertise in a magazine, I'm advertising to someone who's interested in these kinds of things. So if my ad is related to the things that are in the magazine, then there's a really good tie-in and a really good likelihood that I've reached a target market, right? And boy, don't we know how target marketing is important. I mean, CPM, TM is much more important than CPM, right? So magazines are either funded or they get their revenues by advertisements, sometimes by contributions. So for example, the AARP magazine, which is a free magazine, which is the largest distributed magazine in the United States, AARP gets its money from the contributions that people do and the memberships that people give into the AARP. So they're funded by ads, contributions, subscription fees. That's where I pay somebody to get the magazine delivered to me weekly or monthly, or even there are some that are daily, but it's delivered to me, whether that's an online format or a print version, it's a subscription fee. And then there is the rack rate. So the rack rate is when you buy a magazine out of a rack. So if you walk through the grocery store and you go down that aisle that has all the magazines, when you grab it, that's the rack rate. That's the most expensive. If you tell me that you're going to buy every month, then you get a subscription, and the subscription is cheaper than buying any one magazine off the rack. So rack rate. There are different types of magazines. There are consumer magazines, trade rags. So consumer magazines, I should illustrate: Time Magazine, People Magazine, Us Magazine. Then there are trade rags. So they're like Chain Store Age is a magazine for retailers. So it's especially for chain stores. And as you remember from Principles of Marketing, I'm sure you do, that a chain store is like a family brand store, all right? So Walmart would be a chain store. Walgreens is a chain store. So people who are running and managing the stuff that goes on chain stores, they get Chain Store Age and read it. I should note to you that research indicates that the average manager reads 10 hours a month. Trade magazines. Interesting. So then there are industrial magazines, and these things will be for an industry. So for example, concrete construction. Concrete construction would be read by my friend Mike Harden, who came to speak for us at Business Club this year, who runs a concrete forming company, huge one across the United States and internationally. And so Harcon Construction, he would read that magazine. And but so would professors in construction management at colleges. So it's not just for people in the industry, there are others who will read it also. Then there are professional magazines. So the Harvard Business Review, a lot of business people read the Harvard Business Review. It has a lot of stuff that's going on, and analysis that's going on in theories that are happening around the United States and internationally for business. And then we have I guess I thought the Harvard Business Review was so important I wrote it down twice. The National Law Review would be read by lawyers and students who are working to get their law degree and professors. All right, so specifically in terms of trade magazines. So trade magazines, there are two types. There are vertical publications and horizontal publications. A vertical publication is for an entire industry. So for example, Women's Wear Daily. Women's wear, so this would be for fashion merchandisers. So people who are in the fashion industry, what are women wearing? And that would be read across the vertical plane. So the manufacturers of women's clothes would be reading that. The wholesalers would be reading it. The buyers for different stores would be reading it. Stores where they sell women's magazine would wear it. And down at the bottom, there are a bunch of ladies who want to be very stylish, and one of the best ways to be stylish is to read Women's Wear Daily. It really hits what the industry is doing with trends. Okay, so that's a vertical trade rag. Then there's a horizontal trade rag. Horizontal cuts across different industries. So for example, Direct Marketing magazine. Direct marketing. Walmart direct markets. So does LL Bean. Now, LL Bean does differently than Walmart. Walmart is going to do direct marketing to people on their website. They're going to send emails. They're going to send magazine. They're going to send inserts in the newspaper. So they're going to read what's going on in direct marketing. But so is LL Bean, that does catalogs and an internet site. So would Grainger, who does catalog, internet, and retail stores for businesses. So we've got a whole different kind of companies that would do this. PepsiCo, for example, they do direct marketing. They direct market to directly to stores, DSD, direct to store, DSD, direct to store delivery. They're going to deliver to convenience stores and grocery stores. Well, they're direct marketing, right? Vending machine operators would read direct marketing because they're putting things right in front of consumers. So Direct Marketing magazine is a trade rag that cuts across different types of industries. So we have vertical and we have horizontal. I thought I might show you some of the biggest magazines that are out there. So People Magazine, Better Homes and Gardens, Sports Illustrated, Time, Newsweek, TV Guide, Newsweek, Parade, Reader's Digest, Good Housekeeping. This is by ad revenue, okay? So if you're going to put an ad in People Magazine for a month, my bet is it would cost about $80,000, $90,000 for a one-page ad. Better Homes and Gardens would probably be about 75. Sports Illustrated about 75. I believe Time Magazine is about 65,000. So they're getting a lot of revenue from these kind of magazines. But we could also look at it in terms of how many people subscribe. Whoops, let me go back there. Move my face out of the way. So here you notice the #1 magazine for subscriptions is AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons. And yes, I am a member. And yes, I have been a member for a long time. I've been a member for almost 10 years. No, I take it back. I've been a member for 17 years, but it's an associate membership. That's because my wife is 7 years older than I am. When you hit 50, they start sending you AARP magazine. And so when they made me an associate member, because my wife was 50 when I was 43. But you see that 22 million people get the AARP magazine. And then they have the AARP Bulletin. And another 22 million people get it, right? Then isn't this interesting? The next top magazine with 7 million subscribers is Game Informer magazine. Who would have thought that? And then Better Homes and Gardens and Good Housekeeping and Reader's Digest Family Circle. And then finally down to National Geographic at 4 million. And you notice People magazine, which is the magazine we kind of think of as the biggest, is really way down here, still in the top 10, but down at 3 million. That's a far cry from 22 million. Trade magazines. There are a ton of trade magazines around here. Notice over here is Retailer magazine. Here are global advertising revenues from 2007, 2016. And you can see we've got $18 billion worth of advertising in trade magazines. Okay, so business to business magazines are really, really big, right? So here in North America, you can see digital copies and print copies. So back here in 2008, we had about 4 million, I take it back, that's $4 billion in the US of advertising revenues just from print. And you can see that's gone down to about 3.2 billion, but building up has been your online. So here, wholesalers and online suppliers, specialty food, all different kinds. So advantages and disadvantages. Advantages. #1, a magazine hits a target audience. They're really, really, really good at hitting specialized audiences. So Parents Magazine, I wonder who that one's directed to. All right, so new parents read that magazine and grandmoms will read that magazine, new grandmoms, and they learn a lot about that stuff, and there are a lot of ads about babies in that deal, right? Second is the receptivity of the audience. I forgot to button my buttons this morning, so let's see, I'm watching myself. Generally, audiences are very attracted and interested in magazines and the advertisements in those magazines because they're specialized toward what they want. They have a lot of credibility. The ads have a lot of credibility because I like the magazine. I'm reading the magazine. I'm getting a lot of information from the magazine. So that credibility of the magazine associates itself back into the ad. Long life. Generally, magazines have the longest life of any type of, whoops, I'm sorry. I'm trying to move this thing around so you guys can see everything, have the longest lifespan. Some magazines people save throughout their life. When my Aunt Lucy died, we went down to her basement and she had every National Geographic issue that had ever been done in her basement. We threw them all away. I know my mom made us throw them away. I wanted to try to sell them because I knew they were worth a bunch of money. She had a New York Times from D-Day, and I know that baby's, if it's in good condition, is worth about $20,000. But no, my mom made us throw it away. Oh, well, at that time, it was not worth arguing with her. You know how that can be, right? In general, magazines are read slowly. Very few people pick up a magazine and read through the whole thing unless they're in the hospital visiting someone, or right, generally takes too long to read it. So generally, a magazine is read over 5 days. So when you read the magazine, you're going through, you see an ad, you throw it down, and the next time when you pick it up, you flip back through the magazine to get to the place where you stopped, and you see that ad again, right? So you get multiple exposures to an ad, to a magazine. On average, research has shown that magazines are shared with 5 people. Now, that includes the ones that are in doctors' offices that 5,500 people have read because they've been there for 3 years. Of course, I don't think we're going to do that during this time period because people will be afraid somebody else touched and had COVID and they're not going to read a magazine. Somebody else got it. So maybe this average 5 people doesn't work right now, but in general, it does work, right? So on general, we think 5 different people are going to read it. So, and we're going to have a person generally see an ad, they kind of assume about 3 times because you're flipping back through the ad. So if the ad is in the front of the magazine. So that being true, you're getting a lot of exposures to interested people for a fairly good rate, right? So format. A magazine allows for some creativity. You can put inserts into a magazine. Of course, generally always there's an insert in the magazine for you to subscribe to the magazine, but they can even put samples in magazines. A lot of times when they put samples in, they'll put a plastic wrap around it, send it through the mail so that your sample is still there. So you can have some creativity. You can have different looks and feels of different things. I've seen ads with scratch and sniff and things like that. Then we can do sales promotions through a magazine. We can give coupons, samples. We can put loose material, lots of different information in magazines. Some of the disadvantages of magazines are we have not much flexibility in terms of when the ad is going to run. Ads have to be submitted at least 2 months in advance of the magazine printing. And a lot of times, if like with People magazine, companies are going to book the page of the magazine for that ad a year or year and a half in advance. So now I should mention that the close date is the date you have to have the ad to them. So you can book the place in the magazine 2 years in advance, and then 2 months before you have to submit the advertisement. But say, for example, a magazine that came out this past week. We've got the COVID virus going on right now. Everybody's sheltered in place. Maybe a company would want to send something out about the COVID crisis in a magazine. Not going to happen. That ad for the magazine was submitted 2 months ago. It's too late. We had a close date. They designed the magazine and they've started printing already before we started sheltering in place, right? The other thing is the ad location is limited. Now, the best place to have a ad in a magazine is on the back cover. Why? Because somebody throws the magazine down, it's either going to land on the top, on the bottom, or it's going to open where the staples are. So the number 1 place is on the back page. The number 2 place is open the cover, right? The first page, open it up, and right there, that's the number 2 place. And the number 3 most important place is where the staples are. And a lot of times where the staples are, we're going to do a 2-page ad. Excuse me. Magazines are expensive, right? Often the cost of a magazine is got a CPM that's going to be higher than TV, higher than a newspaper. It's going to be a high CPM, right? But the benefit, of course, is the audience may be much more receptive to receiving the ad than they do on the internet, or that they do on a newspaper or in the television. And there's a lot less wasted reach because the people have chosen to read the magazine and they're interested in the material in the magazine. So although it's more expensive, most people think that it's often very, very, very effective. Okay. In terms of distribution, most magazines are distributed through the mail, but others are through stores. And the impact of the internet is really big because you can look at People magazine on the internet. So why would you buy a physical magazine? Well, because you had to for your principles of marketing class, and you may choose that you're going to buy one for your advertising class to take a look at them, because we look at a lot of magazine ads in advertising class. But in general, especially young people are not buying physical magazines. So most magazines nowadays have transferred some exclusively to the web, and then some to both web and still printing. Now, if you move exclusively to the web, there are two ways to handle your revenues. Number one is through advertisements, and number two is you restrict content. So you have partial content on the website, and then if you click to read the rest of the content, you have to have a subscription to the online magazine. So the cost for magazines, for advertising magazine, is determined by, number one, the circulation. How many subscribers do they have? This is, it's a little older, but it has a few different magazines on here. And, but it's the only one I had that showed the cost. So here for the ARP with 20 million subscribers, I think we saw earlier, it's up to 24 million. But you notice the cost for a 4-color page ad is $248,000. But you reach 20 million people who are actually interested in reading that ad. So circulation is number one. Number two, it's the size of the ad. So how many inches does it take place? A full page, a half page, a quarter page. And then third is the use of color. So the more color that you use, the more we're going to have to charge you for it, because it has to run through the press more times. So a 4-color ad is the most important. And then finally, the position in the publication. I mentioned that that we like the back, the inside front cover, and where the staples are, but then there are variable prices for other things, okay? Also, rates vary for bleed. So let me show you what a bleed page is. Give me a sec, it's gotta come up. All right, let me enlarge that, and then I'm going to stop that share, and then I'm going to share something else. And I'll do this a couple times. So here we have bleed. So what we do with the ad for the magazine is we're going to have the ad go all the way to the outside of the blue line. Okay, that's a 1.25 inch or a 0.125 inch bleed. So for example, let's say we have a tree, right? So the tree is here, but I don't want to cut it off too short, so that on the outside of the tree I have this white line. And so what I do is I bleed, and I have the tree come all the way out to the blue, and so I cut at the red line. And so I'm showing all of the tree I want to show, right? So it bleeds over where we're going to cut, right? Now the safety line here, that's where I'm going to put text, right? And then so my tree would go all the way to the edge, to the red line, and then my text comes in here. And the reason I do that is because I'm going to put staples over here at the red line. And so I want to be able to make sure that I can read it. So we're going to cut at the red line. We want text to go to the end of the white, and then I'm going to design the ad to go to the blue, right? All right, let me now go back here, and I'm gonna hit this gatefold ad. There we go. Let me share that gatefold ad. Okay, here, this is a gatefold. So you notice what the gatefold is we actually print further out than the page should go. And then it folds back in or fold out, one of the ways, depends on if the gatefold is inside the magazine or outside the magazines. But gatefolds help you really get attention, because people have to do something, right? So we have the gatefold ad here. Then this is for in yellow pages, but it can be in a magazine also. Right? Let me go back here, and then there's run of the paper advertisement. Just like for newspapers, we have run of paper ads where if you just put it wherever it can fit. And then I mentioned the card. Let me show you a rate card. Let me go back to my. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble here. There we go. Stop sharing that. Let me do this rate card. Okay, so this is a rate card for Land and Water magazine. Oh, I know you want to get a copy of this one. So they have here. Notice the rates. So here's for a full page ad, and you can bet that not a lot of people read this trade magazine. So a full page ad for 1 month is $2,275. If you promise them that you'll put it in for 3 months, then they're going to reduce the rate for each one of the ads. This is per ad. And if you commit to 6 of them, then, or 6 is the entire year, 3 is a half year. This is a bi-monthly magazine. So if you'll promise that you'll put in 6 magazine ads, they'll charge you $1,900. So then there's a 2/3 page ad, a half page standalone ad where you border it out, and then the half page ad where it's unbordered, 1/3 of the page, 1/4 page, 1/6 of the page, right? So in addition to this, how big it is, we're going to charge you an additional $375 if you want standard color. Okay, and if you want 4 colors, so a full colored ad, we're going to charge you the $2,275 plus $795. Then you can choose if you want to have, say, the back cover. We're going to charge you additional $450. Right? If you're an agency, and you might find this interesting, I think I might have mentioned this before, but ad agencies make their money by placing ad. They make the ad and then for the company, and then they place the ad, and a lot of times they don't charge the client. They place the ad for the client, and then they jack the price up 15%, and so that's how they make their money. I should mention there has been a large uproar last year on advertising fees. So what the advertising company would do is they would charge the company the fee for a placed ad, but you notice here, they're going to get 15% back. So they charge the client, they take the rate, they charge the client 15% more, and then they get a kickback because they're an agency of 15%. So they're actually getting 30% instead of 15%. And this made a lot of advertisers mad, okay? And then of course your standard 210 net 30. If you finance it, here's the charge. right? So, and then they tell you with ad sizes, here's what the height is, the height and width, right? So a rate card. Let me put one more up here. Let me go back and click on this rate card. Okay, so this is the, now this is a little older, but you know, the principles are still the same. So this is the rate card. The rate card is how much they charge for doing things. The rate card, very important term that you need to know for the test. So this is for Barron's. And of course, here's Barron's online, and then they have this magazine, which is Barron's. Barron's is owned by the Wall Street Journal. So a lot of executives, directors at, not a lot of first level managers read this, but once you get promoted to especially third level managers, a bunch of second level managers, third level managers read this a lot. So here's their rate card, and it's extensive, as you can see. So they're trying to sell Y Barron's. I'll get down to it. So ad size, $34,000. If you also put an ad with the Wall Street Journal, then we charge you $30,000 for Barron's ad, and you also have to pay for your Wall Street Journal ad, right? So a full page spread, right? It's going to be like the staples are here, right? So it looks like it's a full page, but it's actually 2 pages. That's going to be $68,000. Junior page is just a small, it's a small, an ad that allows them to put a few different information things that the journal's doing up here. Half page is half page spread. So that would be a half page that goes across 2 pages. Contract volume. If you're going to put an ad in more than once, say you put it in twice in the same magazine, or you space it out over 52, you have one every week, 52 weeks, you get a bigger discount. So you can see that I can commit up to a long time and get a 30% discount if I'm going to have a lot of ads, right? And then they have a 2-year contract rate. How many pages you're going to have, you guarantee them within 2 years. If you're going to have in consecutive weeks, if you're not going to commit to that, but you are going to do it for 6 consecutive weeks, they'll give you another 2%. If you guarantee them that you're going to have 52 a year, they're going to give you an 8%. And then they have category rates for different kinds of people who advertise. The rate for color is an extra 35%, right? That's a four color spread. Then if you want your position guaranteed, they want an additional 15%. So, and then they also have, if you just want it to be in the eastern part of the United States, so they have it for, here's it, the southwestern part of the United States. So they have, and then they have, so they're going to have different sections of the country. They'll have one for each of those. And then they tell you what the deadline is for having your ad to them. Then they tell you what the sizes is. So a rate card, right? I think that is pretty clear on what a rate card is and how to do the rates. I'm going to close these things that I have up. There we go. And then I will go back to our show. Here we go. All right, magazines. So I thought this would be interesting for you. What kind of size and color should I have the magazine? So a fractional ad, 24% of people will notice it. A 1-page ad, 41% of people will notice it. And a 2-page ad, 56% of people will. If you have size and color, 24% will notice the fractional, 33% a 1-page black and white, a 1-page 2-color, 35%, 1-page 3 or 4 color, a black and white spread, that's a 2-page, a 4-color spread, 57%, and look here, an FSI, going into a magazine, freestanding insert, going in a magazine gets the most attention. I just thought it was time for a joke. Okay, whoops, I went too far. All right, now I want to share with you something that's a little, okay. I'd like to share this every semester. I don't see it. Oh, let's see. Share the wrong thing. Sorry about that. Here we go. All right, so thought it's important for us to see what photoshopping does. Well, here's the actress. How she looks without makeup. So the first thing you do is the makeup over. And fix her hair up. And then we take the picture. And then we do a little graphic design work on it. Now let me show you this other one.
Just as it's difficult to be healthy in a toxic physical environment, if we're breathing poisoned air or drinking polluted water, so it's difficult to be healthy in what I call a toxic cultural environment. I started collecting ads in the late 1960s. Ads sell more than products. They sell values, they sell images, they sell concepts of love and sexuality, of success, and perhaps most important, of normalcy. Well, what does advertising tell us about women? It tells us, as it always has, that what's most important is how we look. So the first thing the advertisers do is surround us with the image of ideal female beauty. Women learn from a very early age that we must spend enormous amounts of time, energy, and above all, money, striving to achieve this look and feeling ashamed and guilty when we fail. And failure is inevitable because the ideal is based on absolute flawlessness. She never has any lines or wrinkles. She certainly has no scars or blemishes. Indeed, she has no pores. And the most important aspect of this flawlessness is that it cannot be achieved. No one looks like this, including her. This is a look that's been created for years through airbrushing and cosmetics, but these days it's done through the magic of computer retouching. I've been talking about this for a very long time, and I keep thinking that the models can't get any thinner, but they do. They get thinner and thinner and thinner. We all grow up in a culture in which women's bodies are constantly turned into things, into objects. Turning a human being into a thing is almost always the first step toward justifying violence against that person. Most important is to change not just these ads, but these attitudes that run so deep in our culture. The obsession with thinness is a public health problem. The tyranny of the ideal image of beauty, violence against women. These are all public health problems that affect us all. And public health problems can only be solved by changing the environment.
Something we have to be wary of as as marketers, you know what I mean, and make sure we're setting the right kind of images we want to share. All right, let me move on. All right, so let's go to radio. Several different types of radio. The first type of radio is network. The largest form of radio in the country is network, and the largest provider of radio in the country is Clear Channel. So Clear Channel runs radio around the world. So if you go to Los Angeles at 11:15 p.m. or a.m., you'll be listening to the exact same song as you will in Greenville, South Carolina, because you're listening to a Clear Channel network. So they provide music and experiences everywhere. It's the same. Now, in some places, it's a Clear Channel, but they have a radio jock in different cities, and the radio jock has a certain time slot that they fill in, and then the songs come in that Clear Channel has set up. But for a lot of networks, it is the exact same jock, it is the exact same music every single place in the country. And I should mention that Clear Channel has all kinds of different radios. It has all sorts of different kinds of rock, all different kinds of country. And so if you're listening, no matter what you're listening to, even Christian radio is Clear Channel. The largest Christian radio station in town is a Clear Channel, and it's the same stuff that is listened to in Atlanta and Houston and Chicago. Clear Channel. Okay. The second type of radio is syndicated. So Rush Limbaugh, Focus on the Family radio, is syndicated. So they do the program, and once they do the program, and then they sell it to radio stations. So radio stations take the James Dobson radio program for Christian music, and they put it on their radio, or they take Rush Limbaugh and they put it on. That's a syndicated radio. Then you have a spot radio station. That is an individual radio station that's not affiliated with anybody else. It's just, say, run in Anderson. I think we have 2 small ones. And then finally, we have XM radio, or satellite radio. Radio is broken into segments. There are several different kinds of people who watch radio or listen to radio. Watch radio, listen to it. Number one is a radio fan. 33% of all people who listen to the radio, their style of listening is a radio fan. And that is a person who has 4 to 5 stations that they listen to, and they switch between those 4 or 5. So they push the buttons, or they, on the steering column, they switch between the radio stations. So they're, for example, some of them, they're listening to a song. As soon as the commercial comes on, they flip to the other station to listen. That's a song that's going on in that one. So they have 4 or 5 stations that they switch between. This is the general people who are over 35 and women who are over 55 are part of the biggest class there. Then we have music fans. That's 11%. The biggest group of them is men 25 to 45. And they're just into music, whether it's rock music or country. You know, of course, it could be pop country. It could be traditional country. It could, you know, there are 5 different kinds of country music stations. Then there's station. The biggest group of these listeners are women 25 to 45, and they are just dedicated to a station. They always listen to this one station, and they may listen to it 8 hours a day. Now, usually a lot of these people you're going to find are listening at work. So you may be annoyed one day when you go into work and you're in a cube and the person next to you is playing the radio all day long. And you've got to ask them if they'll use earbuds. And, you know, with my luck, I'd get somebody who didn't want to use earbuds, and I got to go to HR or my boss and get them to use earbuds, and then they're mad. And station listeners. And finally, we have news fans. So these are people who listen to Fox radio or who listen to CNN radio. Generally, those people are over 35 years old. Radio is measured by coverage. Million megawatt station only has so much land mileage coverage that it goes to. So it's measured there. And then it's rated by listeners, which is ratings. So the number, what it says, I've got down here the number of listeners, but it's the percentage of people who are listening to radio. One, I think we saw this in last lecture, 1% of the people, of all the people who are listening to the radio, is one rating point. So the total market has 100 rating points. Types of radio ads, right? There are spot ads. Spot ads is a 60-second or 30-second, sometimes 15-second ads. That is a spot, okay? So it goes on we have it both wired and unwired networks. So some of you probably listen to the radio online. And so an advertisement comes up, that's usually a spot, right? Generally looked at as traditional on air. And then we've got digital. So all revenue derived from the website is what we call digital. So we have spot ads, which are digital spot ads. But then there are also, when we're talking about watching on the PC or listening on the PC, they can have banner ads, tile ads, pop-up ads, any kind of revenue that they're getting from the internet, anything that's streaming, the email messages that they send out asking you to buy t-shirts and things like that. Then we also have mobile media where they take the media and they go to some, like a card dealership, and they're broadcasting from the card dealership. There are web affiliate relationships where we do spot ads, and it includes HD, HD2, and HD3 radio stations that are online. Okay. Then we have network ads. So here, for example, Rush Limbaugh is going to be advertising different products during his program, right? So that's network revenue, okay? We also have off-air and non-spot and non-traditional revenues. So a radio station could sponsor a concert at the Bilo Center. It could put up signs outside its building. It could have concessions, sponsorships, merchandising, print advertising activities that they do. All these kind of things are types of revenue that radios get. So here's through 2021, we're expecting revenue from 2018 of right around 18.2 billion to go up to about 18.87 billion or 18.9. Advantages and disadvantages. Advantages of radio. Number one, it is great at targeting, because if I listen to country western, pop country western, there are a lot of things that people who listen to pop country western are more likely to do than other people, right? So they're more likely to buy cowboy boots than somebody who's listening to rock and roll. So we're going to take a cowboy boot store and they're going to advertise there. So it's great on targeting. Radio is very affordable, right? You can design a spot very quickly. I think I've got another slide that's going to tell you that. It can be done very quickly. You can submit right up to airtime and they can put it on immediately. So, for example, with our COVID thing, you can't put an ad in a magazine for the COVID crisis because 2 months ago was the close date, but you can do an ad in the radio tomorrow, right? Or today, really. Mental imagery. You're driving down the road and the radio commercial comes on, you hear this dripping water, right? And so you're imagining a leak, right? And then the plumber comes on talking about commerce. So radio is very good for getting people to imagine things. Right? It's also got strong reminder and reinforcement capability. So reminder advertising, a Coca-Cola ad will go there. A reinforcement capability. So if on TV and in magazines and newspapers, we have ads for Verizon, you get a, no data caps and whatever, and then we put it on the radio and we say the same thing, and it's a really good reinforcement. Disadvantages is number one is attention. So I may be listening to the radio, but am I really listening? Well, I'm doing other things. Well, that's going on. I'm really not so focused on what's being said on the radio. It lacks visuals, so it's not engaging all of me. Clutter can be a problem. We've got so many ads, I just want to tune them out and I don't want to listen to that, or it causes me to switch to another station. There can be scheduling and buying difficulties. To reach a wide audience, you got to put it on several stations. So if I'm going to advertise the Anderson County Fair, which stations do I put that on? Well, I may need to put it on Country Western, I may need to put it rock, may need it on the Christian, so I'm going to have to put the same ad or a variation of the ad on a bunch of different radio stations. And the final problem with a disadvantage of radio is that lack of control. You don't know what came just before or just after your ad. So let's say, for example, you are doing an ad for parenting, and you put it on a rock and roll station, and the radio jock says a dirty joke, and then we go to your commercial. Oh man, right? Not good, because then the offense of the radio jock is associated with your product, and you get a lot of complaints. So some tips on using the radio. Tips. Good to write down these tips, have them ready for the test. So number one, repetition is critical. Generally, you need 15 ads per week per station to get your message across, because different people listen at different time periods. And so you want to schedule the ad at different time periods during the week. The best time, of course, is the drive time slots. And that's when people are driving from home and they're driving to home, right? So, they're driving from home to work and from work to home. Those are big. Those are the most expensive time slots. And then the evening and late night after midnight, because some people listen to the radio all night long because they've got insomnia. Second tip, or I guess that's the fourth tip, fifth, maybe that's the fifth tip. Radio stations will negotiate. So they turn out this Arbitron book, which is how many rating points we get, how many people are listening, right? And so you can look at that Arbitron rate, but if a radio station doesn't have enough ads, if they're not filling all their radio time slots, they're going to negotiate because they want to fill up. It's better to have some revenue than no revenue. So you can negotiate with radio stations. Finally, ads are cheap to produce. So for a voiceover 60-second ad, you can get that done for about $250. So you can go online and Google and look up a voice ad or create a radio ad, and these ads will come up and you can look down and find somebody who will produce your ad for you. And oftentimes you can get it done for $250. So radio can be really, really, really cheap to produce. You write your script and they execute it. That's the way that would work. Or you can hire them. Here's the message I want. And for more than $250, that will write a script for you and then do the script. And again, that might be $500, $750. Just again, very cheap. And so now we're going to go to television. Cats rule.
As a mom with 3 active kids, I've got to make sure I know what they're up to at all times. And as any mom will tell you, they can be a handful. That's why I give my kids Kidstone Chewable Valium.
Kidstone Chewable Valium, the barbiturate the whole family can enjoy.
And once the Kidstone Chewable Valiums kick in, these kids kind of stay right where you put them. They're quiet, relaxed. It's a dream. And just about all you have to do is check their breathing every once in a while or just poke at them with a stick.
Kidstone Chewable Valium, from the makers of nitrous oxide balloon animals.
All right, so TV and radio, we're looking at gross rating points. So that's the total of all exposures, and then we divide by the total impressions. So, or divide it by the impressions. So we have 100,000 viewer impressions with 500,000 people in the population. That times 100, that would be a 20 GRP. Okay, which means 20% of the total population heard the message. And of course, total population we're talking about of TV viewers or of radio listeners. Okay, how many people are watching and what percentage of those are watching this? So that's the gross rating point. So for television, if you're getting a 20 GRP, you've got especially in prime time, you've got a major show. So generally with say something that's really, really popular, say right now, I think it's the last year of Criminal Minds, last season of Criminal Minds, they may get 23, 24 GRP, which means 24% of the people who are watching television at that time are watching Criminal Minds. GRP. Share. Share is the percent of people who are watching television or listening to the radio. Nielsen has these, and this is how do you find that out? Nielsen has these audio meters to find out what's watched. They have a viewing diary and a people meter. So the audio meter is a device that hooks on the television and it records what you're watching. So it records by the sound. So what happens is it hooks up to the television, it listens to the sound of the television. And when it sees what the sound of the television is, and some of them will look at the closed caption, and they record the closed caption. They find out right before that closed caption, there's a little thing that's not seen in the closed caption that tells you what the program is or what the commercial is, and it records that for Nielsen. Then there's a viewing diary. There are 1 million a year that are returned, and this is what a viewing diary looks like. So you would write this is person number 1 would be dad, person number 2 would be mom, or rather, person number 1 would be mom, person number 2 would be dad, person number 3 would be child number 1, person number 4, child number 2, or maybe it's wife, child number 1, child number 2, child number 3, and dad. At least that's what it feels like. Okay, and so here you just put a check right here, which means you put the name of the person. I'll show you that another slide will be bigger. All right, then there's a people meter. So there are 5,000 people a year. They walk into the room and they push a button, and it tells them that they're watching TV, and then it records and knows which person is watching TV. There's a new measure for TV ads, and I'm going to go back to the other. There's a new measure for TV ads, and that's called 35-day viewing. So down at the bottom, you notice ABC was going to cut the show Timeless. It didn't have enough viewers, and it didn't have enough GRP and share. But when they looked at what happened over 35 days, they found how many people DVR'd the show and how many looked at it on demand. And they found out that the show Timeless was their number 4 dollar maker in ABC's network. So they decided not to cut the show, and they came up with this new measure. And that would include every time somebody watched the show. all views, whether it's on a website, whether it's Hulu, whether it's on demand, or whether it's on a DVR. They take all the total views and all the total revenues from the ad, regardless of where it's seen, and then they calculate how much money they make. That's a brand new one. All right, so here's a bigger picture of the viewing diary. All right, so this is at the time of day and what the name of the program is, and then you check who's watching the show. And then here are kind of the results you see from Nielsen. This is for the evening news, and you can see that it's got a GPR of 8.3, 7.2. You can see which the favorite stations are during the time, right? So GRP, of course, is how many people are watching, and then share as total population. This is a device that Nielsen gave to me and they paid me $1 a month to do this. And I hooked this device on my television, or they came by and did it. And it recorded every single thing that we watched in our home. And they used that to, not what we sell, but it recorded what shows we were watching. And there's another one that Nielsen has that a friend of mine got, and it's got a Wii technology on it. So when they set it up, they have the dad stand there and then the mom stand there. And so just like Wii, it gets your physical size and shape in general. And then it detects whether you're in the room or not. And then it records it. My friend was paid $100 a month, and they supplied him his TV, his radio, DVR. They supplied everything for him to be able to record by person who was watching, and they could tell exactly who was watching what and when. There are about 5,000 people who have that across the country. Advantages and disadvantages of television. First, of course, television is persuasive. 97% of homes in the United States have a TV. Some of you are thinking there are homes that don't have a TV. Oh yeah, 3%. For me, when my wife and I got married, we didn't have a television until we got married in '85. We didn't have a television until '97. My wife just demanded we have one for the Olympics. So we got one, and I was against it because I knew if we had a television, I'd be watching it. Now I watch it all the time instead of reading. So, but there are people who were nuts like I was and didn't have a television. Cost efficiency. To put an ad up on television is very expensive. I mean, I'm going to show you later on, $300,000 the base to make a commercial. And then you have to place it on television. If you're placing it, say, during a prime time, it's another $300,000. So it's $600,000 to do a commercial across the country. But there are a lot of people who watch. So your CPM can be very good. Right? Impact. It has sight, sound, color, motion, drama. You can do so much with a commercial. Disadvantages, number one, is the production costs. This is a little old here. Now it's about 300,000, and Super Bowl is about 5.3 million, I think, 5.4 million last year, just to show it for 60 seconds. And then there are local TVs. Now that it's cheaper on local TV. Let me tell you the way that works. So in the digital world, 8 zeros is called a flag. So before we have a piece of data, we have 8 zeros. And then after a piece of data, we have 8 zeros. And that says I'm about to start it, and then I've ended this packet of data. So in television, if you put 2 of those back to back, so you have 16 zeros in a row before you have a 1, then that is an insert flag. So we've got this local television spot for a local car dealership, and it's sitting there in the digit, and it waits for those 16 zeros. And when those 16 zeros come, it means it's time for a 30-second spot. And so they insert it in at the local channel, and so it shows. Now what that says is that nationally we didn't sell that 30 seconds, and so it's available. And so they put the 16 zeros for a drop insert. Even during the Super Bowl, when you see a local television, a local ad during the Super Bowl, again, it's sitting there, and that means this 30 seconds they didn't sell out for the Super Bowl, and so they insert it in. Okay. So I gave you a little information there about local TV. Clutter is the second disadvantage. In many television programs, there are so many commercials, it drives you crazy. CSI got in trouble a few years back because they were having 34 minutes of commercials in a 60-minute show. People got mad, so they cut back to about 27 minutes. It's very popular, so they want to sell. It's $300,000 in a show, and so they wanted as much money as they could get. I think it was actually 380 when it was at its height. Third problem is wasted reach. So you're doing an ad on television, you're spending a lot of money, getting a lot of people to view it, but there may be a lot of people who are not interested in your product. So you're paying for them to see an ad about your product, or paying for them to flip to a different channel. So it's wasted reach. Inflexibility. So oftentimes you'll buy your spot in the spring and it won't air till fall, right? So oftentimes it's hard to get a spot in television if you order late. So if you want to get a spot in the Super Bowl, you better be getting it now, or you better already had it, right? So there's some inflexibility there. And finally, intrusiveness. So viewers will take methods to avoid the commercials. They don't want to see the commercials. So they TiVo, or they mute, or they turn the channel, even though it's the advertisements that are paying for our programs. Right now with Netflix, it's our subscriptions that are paying for the programs. But when we watch something on network television, it's the advertisements that are paying for the television programs. So there can be problems with not watching and seeing how things keep going. All right, let me flip a second over to viral ads. 5-minute show here.
Hi, I'm Sarah Green. I'm here today with Harvard Business School professor Talis Teixeira. He's done extensive research on what makes ads go viral using eye tracking and facial recognition software. Talis, thanks so much for coming in today.
Glad to be here, Sarah.
So tell me how ads today need to be different than they needed to be in the past to be successful.
Okay, so in the past, ads needed to be memorable, right? Now, to be memorable, they had this idea of having a storyline, and at the end, really providing a surprising finish, a punchline, or a joke, or something like that, right? Just like in movies, how scripts are made. The thing is that most recently, many people have started to avoid watching ads, or they skip with the remote control. They use DVRs to zip past through ads, so they don't arrive at the end of the ad. And if they don't arrive at the end of the ad, it's not memorable to them. So for ads today, ads have to become different. They need to actually capture the viewer's attention in the first 5 seconds. So the surprise finish, the punchline that used to be at the end, now has to be sort of more at the beginning to capture viewers' attention.
So how do you keep people watching after hooking them?
One of these ways is just to induce joy. If people feel happy, people feel humor, they're excited, they're interested, they're more likely to watch the ad until the end. Now, the way to do it, you would imagine that, well, provide the most amount of humor and people are going to be more happy about it, they're going to watch the ad until the end. It turns out that in my research I find that that's not the best way to do it. People actually get used to, they adapt to the humor, to the positive emotion that they feel. So to get an ad to be viewed all throughout, you actually have to do what is counterintuitive, which is provide some funny or some joyful moments and then take it away from them. Create a scene in which there isn't this, and then you reinsert it in another scene, emotional, humorous part of the ad.
Can you give us an example of an ad that follows that kind of format?
Sure. So one of these is the Bud Light swear jar. right? So what happens is this ad starts off with people in the office, and they create a swear jar in which if you swear, you actually have to put money in the jar. And the ad is all about instances in which people try to swear, because what they've decided is when the swear jar gets full, they'll buy a case of Bud Light with it. Now, in this sense, the first swearing is actually surprising. So when viewers are not used to swearing on ads, so when they see it, even though beeped out, it's surprising. So the first 5 seconds, they're hooked. And then with this alternation of scenes in which they're swearing, and then it stops, and then it changes to another scene, you can see this high and low, this alteration of the joy that is provided, the humor that is provided, just like my research talks about as being effective.
So what takes an ad like that is effective and then turns it into a viral ad where we actually want to forward this advertisement to a friend?
Sharing is essentially a function of two things. One is the content of the ad, right? Some types of ads are more likely to share. In that regards, surprising ads are also ads that are more likely to be shared, but they can't be shocking ads. One example of that is the Bud Light clothing drive. So this is an ad in which there are people in the office that are actually, they take their clothes off to donate. And so you can actually see scenes of nudity, which is, it's blocked by black squares. But nonetheless, people are more likely to watch it because it's surprising, yet they're less likely to share it because it's shockingly surprising. The opposite of that is Evian roller babies. What they have is a bunch of babies that are computer generated that are doing stunts with rollerblades. That's surprising, but that's not shocking. So the last element is actually that not just content fosters sharing, but people's motivations also foster sharing. So that's important because there's two basic types of motivation. One is people's altruistic motivation to share, right? I see an ad, I like it, I find it funny, and then I want to share it with you because I think you will enjoy it too. But it turns out that we find from our research that most of the sharing happens through a self-interested reason. Not altruistic, but self-interested. People share ads because they want to appear sort of socially, they want to gain social capital in the process of sharing it, appear as though they found something new, interesting, and insightful. It's all about them, not about the receiver.
Well, Talios, that's fascinating research. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
My pleasure.
Right. So one more. What makes
It's pretty easy to spot a great ad, but what makes it so effective? Hi, I'm Rebecca Brayton, and welcome to WatchMojo.com. And today we're speaking with Terry O'Reilly, who will be telling us about some of the good and bad choices made in advertising. Can you talk to us more about the art of persuasion versus the art of hitting you over the head with something?
It's hard to do a great ad for a bad product because you really have to have something great to start with, like anything in life. But I think a great ad is entertaining or it's dramatic, but it definitely has an idea attached to it. And it should be the kind of idea that makes you look at the product in a brand new way. Like I'm suddenly intrigued by that product.
Got milk?
That's always a sign of a great ad. If you want to see it more than once, that's also the sign of a great ad, or hear it more than once if it's a radio ad. That's the sign of a great ad. And then at the end of the day, a great ad has to sell. I think it can't be just a great piece of entertainment that doesn't sell anything. So at the end of the day, it's something you want to watch. It leaves you with a great message. It makes you look at the product in a different way. And at the end of the day, maybe it persuades you. When all those things come together, it's a persuasive, compelling proposition for that product.
What have been some truly terrible choices made in terms of marketing and advertising?
I think the worst advertising is the stuff that has no idea. There isn't anything redeeming about it, or it's just that kind of hard retail that just hits you over the head over and over again. It's got a bad jingle.
Bring us your best deal, and if we can't beat it, we will pay you $500.
They just bark prices at you. That's the worst kind of advertising, and there's a lot of it out there.
You mentioned some aha moments in the industry. Could you give us a few examples?
How you make an accomplice of your audience is by having an aha moment. That if they see an ad and the circle's left a little bit unbroken, like you don't complete it, you leave a little moment where the audience has to go, oh, I get it. That's when you make a huge impact on somebody. One of the campaigns I love out there right now is the Mac versus PC campaign.
Hello, I'm a Mac. And I'm a PC.
It's funny, it's charming, it gives you a lot of information about Apple, but it's also one of the nastiest campaigns out there because it just goes after PC so hard. But they wrap it in charm and they wrap it in humor, so it doesn't seem like it's one of the most competitive advertising campaigns out there. I think that's an aha moment for a lot of people where they kind of laugh. What they do is they make such fun of PCs, but then they put their arm around PC and go, I know you don't have this, but we still love you. You're still such a great guy. And that makes people feel superior to Mac, to PC rather, but don't feel guilty about it. So that's a very interesting reaction to that Apple wanted to pull out of people is let's attack them hard, but let's make them feel sorry for PC and not hate them.
Lisa, I just need to sit down. Oh, wow. There's plenty of work out there for both of us. I don't know why you're acting like this.
Why go on? Just let me lie here and depreciate.
Okay, cost for running a 30-second ad. So here back in 1965, it cost $19,000 for a nationwide 60-second ad, and that cost about $1.98 for 1,000 homes. Here in 2014, cost about you got about 4 million people who are going to view. A 30-second ad cost $112,000, and we're at $24, almost $25 for cost for 1,000 homes. So that would be your CPM, right? Cost for 1,000. Yeah. Right. So cost to produce. Special effects are $400,000. To have some kind of testimonial is $100,000. To have several vignettes in a picture is $300,000. To have a single situation voiceover is $275,000. Single situation dialogues about $260,000. Animation, you can see here, if you have some kind of large scale performance, a song and dance goes on, just a monologue, food products and things of that nature are on there. Can be very, very expensive. So here is a viral ad.
Like a G6, like a G6. Now I'm feeling so fly, like a G6. Cut.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm good.
What are you doing?
I'm lip syncing.
Yeah, no, I know that, and it's really, really adorable. But do you know any songs about water?
No.
Hi, I'm Jen Aniston, and I'm here to talk to you about smart water. But in this day and age, apparently I can't just do that, can I? Can't just tell you that smart water is the smartest, best tasting water that's out there. I have to make a video, apparently, that turns into a virus.
Viral.
So...
we need the video to go viral.
Right, sorry, viral. Thank you. This is why I have these three lovely internet boys here to help me. So, apparently, well, animals are huge online. Do we have animals? Oh, you're so sweet. Can you say, I love smart water? Out of there. God. I love smart water.
Rachel, I love your hair.
Okay, that's enough. I don't want to. Let's try to think of something else. Okay. Well, that's adorable. Look at you guys.
Look at them. Wait, what are you doing?
No. No dirty dancing, babies.
It'll get us more views.
It'll also get us arrested.
Babies, stop that. You really can't do that yet.
Where's the mommy?
Full on double rainbow all the way across the sky.
What's going on?
Oh my God.
Hi, honey, are you okay?
It's so beautiful.
What? Come on, let's get you up. Here, have some smart water.
What did they do to you? Anything else? What's left?
Oh my God, Jen Aniston, I have been in love with you forever.
Oh! Sorry, apparently that's worth about 100,000 hits.
Not for me.
God, is it hot in here? I'm fired. Well, in closing, I would like to say that smart water is the purest tasting water there is. What are we going to call this video?
Jen Aniston sex tape?
I love it.
So, 7.6 million views in 3 months. Great. So let's do some cost per thousand, cost per mil, CPM comparisons across major media. So, okay, so you notice down here with radio, cheap, right? So we've got network is about $2.10. And then general radio station is about $7, almost $8. And here's online, $5 for a search engine. A portal's about $9. General content's about $13, and business content's about $17.5. Broadcast television from 10 to 22, so for a primetime spot. Cable TV, cheaper, but again, you can see if you're talking about a zone spot where I'm just going to do Anderson, $25. OHA, so this is outdoor. So you've got shelters and posters and bulletins. And then we've got magazines, so news weeklies, men's, women's, business, $21 for business newspapers. You can see we've got a high CPM there. And then direct mail from $22 to $56 for direct mail. Okay. Here's a Super Bowl cost. So Super Bowl in 2002 was 2.3 million, and in 2019, 5.25 million. Here's the number of viewers for in 1990. We had 70 million people watching, and we had over 111 million watching in 2014. But you notice here the average price of a Super Bowl ad. So you can see the CPM here, right, going up. But so we're talking about CPM at $30, right? And there's the adjusted price when we adjust for inflation, it's gone to 40, but in real terms. So here it is through 2007. Of course, we went down during the Great Recession. Super Bowl through 2007 viewers. This is a Super Bowl ad.
Honey, are you playing with your food again?
Oops, sorry. Okay, internet advertising. So, all right, I'm going to stop here and we'll come back to this with one other separated lecture. And that, so now you got looking forward to a little bit of internet stuff. So I enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys did. Talk to you later.